Good afternoon, welcome to Turbo Tortoise Tech. If you're new here, I'm Reese of the 4-piece warranty, Wookie Triple XL. And much like last week, where we did PC versus PS5, I'm now looking at an esports machine, which I've built to spec specifically for that role. We're going to be focusing mostly on CPU single core performance and reliability. So I've actually even dodged water cooling, and I've already gone with an air cooler, just because it's much easier to get a fan replaced on the spot if you would need to at an event or something where you'd be competing than it is to do water cooling. And basically the entire build is centered around that ethos. We're trying to get as much frame rate as humanly possible to make sure the gameplay is as smooth as possible, and we're going to be focusing on our four main esports titles in CS, Dota, League of Legends, and Valorant. And we're going to be we're speccing a machine to give us the best possible performance in those four titles. So without further ado, let's jump into that part selection. Starting off with the upgrade kit, we are going with a Ryzen 5 7645 Pro, because this is basically a sort of mini 7600X without the onboard graphics card, and I'm going with 32 gig RAM of the XPG 5600 megahertz and a pretty good motherboard at that. That's the base platform on this is very important, because your interconnecting components need to have the proper power delivery to them. You need to have a Gen 4 NVMe where possible, which we have spec'd in part of the build. It's got a heatsink to keep that cool as well. So it wasn't per chance that I selected this specific kit, and because this kit doesn't come with a water cooler. 5.1 gigahertz on a max turbo. I'm actually going to be pushing for about 5.2, because the cooler I've spec'd should be able to deal with a little bit of boost extra over the top. Speaking of, I went for the AG500. It's just a little bit better spec than the AK400. It's actually got 5 copper heat pipes. If we go to, you can actually see from the top, it's got a 5th copper heat pipe to aid in getting that heat out from the CPU and onto the fins. And this is like a 240 watt, as it says over here. I'd rate this probably at about, I've gotten 200 out of the AK400 when it was rated for 220. So I would suspect that I will get about 230, 220, 230, and the TDP on that chip is like 65, and we're going to try and push it to about 80, even 100 watts, depending on how much boost that I can derive from the motherboard and RAM setup. Then for GPU, you knew it was going to be the bang for buck king. We're back with the XFX Quick 308 RX 7600 8 gig. This is a AAA gaming graphics card, so we didn't really want to get to a point of any bottleneck, and keeping it all AMD is actually going to give us a little bit extra performance on top. I would still say overall, the RTX 4060 is still a generally better choice, but in this ecosystem and us trying to hit that 20k budget price point, this is just fitting in absolutely perfectly. Then for power, we're just staying with a 750 watt bronze from Gumdias. It's still pretty much the best bang for buck PSU on the store, as it comes with a 3-year warranty, which lines up with the motherboard and the graphics card as well. So that whole system really has like a 3-year warranty lifetime implied, but this isn't going to be loaded very hard, as I've pointed out, with the CPU being like a 65 watt or 80 watt TDP kind of part. And the GPU, it only pulls in a single 8-pin into it as well. So it maxed out at about 180 watt. So we're getting to half really of what the power supply can possibly push out. And that's just more for that reliability, just to make sure that it's nothing is under load or overloaded, because it's going to be under load for a very long time, probably 8 to 10 hours a day if it's going to be an esports system. Then for storage, as I said earlier, we've got Gen 4, so we're going with an entry-level Gen 4 to make sure that we get the best kind of performance out of it with the C910 Lite from Clev. It's just a very good bang for buck, and it's on the bottom end of the Gen 4 speed. But the main thing I wanted access to was that bus, because the bus width is much wider, so doing multiple files at the same time is also going to be improved. And then finally, we need a case to put all of this into that's going to have cooling, that's going to help us along with that. And the Duoface just came in clutch on that. It's got two 140s up front and a 120 at the back. And they're based off of their MHPs, which are still pretty much the best performing versus the price fan kit that you can buy. I actually bought a fan kit for myself, which is going in front of my PC, because since I've tested them, they've been the best. They get like 80 CFM from a 120, so we could expect at least 90 probably from these two 140s each. That's 180 CFM just on your intake, which is pretty good at the price point as well of $1,600. This case is kind of set up for water cooling, and I was in between if I was going to do a water cooling build with the 5700 X3D or not, but those 7000 series processors just give better single core performance in the games we want to see compared. And that brings us to the final card, which comes in at 20K 800. So just like leaning over that price point, you could, like I say, you could swap out this kit for the Ryzen 7 5700 X3D and it would still be as good. But specifically in Counter-Strike, there has been issues with it, so I just don't want that to be a problem, and I'm not sure if it's going to work in League. Valorant, it probably will, but League of Legends, I'm not so sure. So this is just the safe bet, is the better way to make sure that, because there's obviously other games as well like Apex or COD. The COD I think will be fine with the 3DV cache, but sometimes the ancestral titles don't do so well with it. So with that in mind, that's why we went with this. This build should be an absolute delight for an esports player. This should casually get 200 FPS in any of the games, and it's not going to be limited to that. You're obviously going to be able to do some AAA gaming because you've got an RX 7600. Now next week we are doing something a little extra special and nice. I'm literally going to build the machine on stream. I've just got to figure out how I'm going to set that up, but I'm going to build this on stream and stream the build to you, and then I'm going to install the software and we're going to benchmark it live, and we're going to do the testing live so you can see it as it's getting its results. And I'm going to play the games on stream that I've mentioned. We're basically going to do a full build and test of this machine, and I've already picked up the parts. I went and got them this morning, so I have them on hand. Yeah, it's going to be a very, very cool week next week. Maybe we'll do it in 2 parts. I don't know. I'm still going to see how we're going to set it up, but that's what I want to do because I can capture with my main PC, and then we can do the benchmarking live on stream. So you can see I'm not full of porcupines and whole lies. Until then, I hope you guys stay safe, keep well. If you have enjoyed this, hit us up with a like and subscribe, and stay tuned, and I'll see you next week.